Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
It's just gone 6 o'clock and the Million Mast March is underway. You can see quite a fair number of masts here. The whole thing was organised on social media. Now, Facebook said that 18,000 people were going to come. Early days, but the rain stopped, so we'll see.
Major change is never going to come from a march like this. What it will come from is what it inspires across the country.
Well, we set off from Trafalgar Square, walking down Whitehall to shout of our streets, not the revolution. Not sure where we're going to end up. I would assume just over at Westminster, but I'm not sure this lot know either.
Anonymous is basically saying that enough is enough. If you know the realities of what's going on our earth, you would be joining in.
But it did get violent last year, didn't it?
It did get violent, but I wasn't involved with that, unfortunately. I was a peaceful person, and that's how I will remain.
Well, it's been going for less than an hour, but already you can see a bit of pushing and shoving. Over the other side, there is a line of police on police horses, and the sort of melee, the crowd's been pushing backwards and forwards, and there have already been a few things thrown. Well, it's just gone 7 o'clock, and there's a lot of movement just a moment ago, a lot of protesters running around, a lot of police running around. Protesters shouting, "Kettle, kettle." They're concerned that they're going to get kettled, i.e. stuck in this area here, not able to move off by the police. 8. Sounds a bit daft. We've definitely seen several thousand protesters, but we're not sure exactly where they are, and that seems to be the nature of this whole march. Well, we found them, and now we're on Pall Mall. And certainly a big column of people walking up this way. And
our street! Our street!
Is this going to make a difference this march tonight?
I bloody hope so. I'd like it to. I don't think it will. But I want us to see the voices. We don't want to fight, but we're going to have to fight soon.
It's raining. You don't mind the rain?
We're English.
Well, there was a flurry of activity and suddenly the police arrived and quite literally blocked the road. The protesters are on the other side. There have been some shouts that the kettle's on, but I imagine that's not the kettle being on in a good way. Okay, it's just gone 9 o'clock and the protesters were told they had to stop protesting after 9 o'clock. That's what seems to be happening here. Police slowly moving people away. You can see Buckingham Palace just in the background. So quite what happens next, we're not really sure yet. In the end, it didn't take long to clear them. But elsewhere, there were small pockets of violence, and 3 police officers were injured, needing hospital treatment. At least 50 arrests were made, mainly for public order offences. And some of the protesters were disappointed with how it turned out.
Come down and have a ruckus with the police. It's not about that. It's about making a statement and saying we're not happy. We're not happy with what's going on.
Do you think tonight will have made any difference?
Unfortunately, it won't. No, of course it won't.
Oh, it's not really a march, is it? It's just people standing around in the corner.
I think they're scattered around and they haven't got together. Because if they did get together, then it would have been a revolution probably. But I think the weather's put everyone off, to be honest.
Very British approach to revolution, the weather. We're joined now by Adam Clifford of the Class War Party. He was at last night's demonstration. We had him on the programme before the election campaign, during the election campaign itself. What was last night's march against?
It was against a lot of things, really. Austerity, the state that London's in. I mean, the desperation of the people. There's a lot of homeless people at the moment. I mean, that's off the scale at the moment, and I myself am actually homeless at the moment. So yeah, so I feel very I salute the guys that went out last night, but I mean, it was boring. It was such a police display, a military march. You know, nothing could really happen.
Are you worried that this whole movement is running out of steam because there weren't that many people there last night?
Well, no, it's just the sort of crunch down. Really, it's just the police. I mean, there was as many police as there was protesters last night, And in Trafalgar Square, it was like, all these sections were being read out that, you couldn't cover up, and it was police state.
But that was because
it was 1984.
they couldn't find any of the organisers to deal with in advance.
Well, I mean, it's anonymous, so there are no...
So that's what...
Yeah, that's what the thing is.
Is there... Have you undermined yourselves by being a bit unfocused? I mean, there were so many different protesters on different issues last night. I was looking about the general concept of being against capitalism. You mentioned homelessness as well. Animal rights were one. What's happening to South Korean dogs was another. Paedophiles. That kind of... is there not a danger that you're sort of firing on too many fronts?
What we have here is people who are not protesting for something. They are not articulating a worldview. They're not articulating an argument against tax credits. They're not articulating an argument.
It might not be a very eloquent argument, but there is an argument.
No, there isn't.
It's an anti-capitalist
demonstration. You might as well protest against oxygen. These people are products of capitalism. They are wearing the garments of capitalism. They are filming this on they are children of Apple. They're filming this on iPhones, which are in many ways a symbol of capitalism. And they're ranting around the streets of London. They're throwing fireworks at police horses. They're setting fire to police vans. To what end? What position are they articulating? They will slump off home at the end of the evening and they'll come back next year. This is not a movement. This is not something that carries with it a clarion call to legitimate action. It's a bunch of people, many of whom will be overprivileged, who stick on a silly mask and go romping around the streets of London to no good purpose at all.
Watching the people get leery. It's not very pretty, I tell thee. Walking through town is quite scary. Not very sensible either.
No, I think they all this stuff crosses over. I think it's a march of the underdogs, really. It's the people that are the other side of the fence that are really feeling it. London's in this kind of state at the moment. It's become Victorian again. You've got the super rich and you've got the super poor. So, I mean, what are we meant to do? What are we meant to do?
You say it's the march of the underdogs. A number of people were tweeting, though, who watched it, just members of the public. One said, nice to see anti-capitalists queuing patiently at McDonald's while on their iPhones.
Well, you can't. He's wearing what might be a Burberry jacket. He's certainly got a bag, which you can't quite see, which has got a Nike logo. So these are people who are products of a capitalist society. They're wearing trainers, the symbol of capitalist society, and they're kind of arguing against it. And it's a bit lame.
He got beaten. He looked the wrong way at a policeman. Would never have happened to Smeaton. I know the Hortensian.
They were protesting against the stock exchange, but they couldn't camp outside there. And then St Paul said, all right, you can camp here.
Although it was quite amusing to see the longest queue ever for Starbucks in the history of the world in that square at a protest against capitalism.
Well, the papers have asked how long the protesters were planning... The papers.
Oh, papers.
The papers.
They're outside St Paul's.
Does anyone know what the London protesters are trying to achieve?
Well, the overthrow of the corrupt city system as they see it, one suspects, no?
They tweet about it regularly on their iPhones, perhaps in between getting cafe lattes, and housing themselves in some very fancy tents. But they are against capitalism, except for the lattes.
So if they buy coffee, their opinions are worthless?
I think if they prop up a corporate titan like Starbucks, they've got to ask themselves how much of capitalism they really don't like.
I don't think you can negate them because they have a cup of coffee. It's like saying to a condemned man on the way to the gallows when he's blubbing, you ate your last meal. What's the matter with you?
He said it was your last meal.
You can't be against capitalism and then take everything that it provides and say, this is terrific.
Everything?
Thank you, but I hate the system that you're providing.
One cup of coffee and they can't...
Can't they be about... Sorry, No. It's just so obvious, I can't be bothered.
What are you going to say?
You don't have to want to return to a barter system in the Stone Age to complain about the way the financial crisis affected large numbers of people in the world, do you? Even if you're having a cup of coffee and you've got a tent.
No, I think you do. And say capitalism is crisis and then enjoy everything it brings and revel in it and relish it.
You keep saying everything. They had a cup of coffee. That's not everything.
Well, according to The Guardian, the protesters have a number of targets, but their ambition is to stamp out greed and world poverty. They're hoping to set up a visitor centre and an outreach group to spread the message.
Right. Well, that sounds
There you
really
go.
effective.
Much better to get some lobbyists in.
What did Matthew Watkinson, an extra from Downton Abbey?
If he's drunk coffee, I'm not interested. Just not interested. He's worthless. His opinion is of no value at all.
What a rich
if I
TV
can smell
star.
espresso on your breath, get out of here.
Well, I mean, there was this.
They're underdogs.
Well, I mean, yeah, we are underdogs actually. But we couldn't do anything. We could not do anything last night with the police out in full scale displaying all their techniques, doing all their dances up and down and all that sort of stuff with all their armour and guns and tasers and all that sort of business. Really.
Explain what is the purpose of the mask?
Well, I mean, it's the bottom line is, say you have a job, you're trying to get by, and you don't believe that this is a democracy or something that's not fair. You could go out onto the street and go onto a protest and basically be profiled. There's this whole thing of joint enterprise now, so you could be picked up a few days after maybe the event just for going. Maybe you didn't actually do anything. Maybe you didn't do anything violent, and then you're named, shamed, and framed, and all the rest of it, and probably lose the basic privileges that you've actually got.
We've covered these demonstrations in years gone by. There were some pretty huge ones that have taken place. Last year seemed to be a little bit smaller. For Guy Fawkes night, I would suggest it was a bit of a damp squib.
Yeah, it was boring. I mean, I went home early.
Did
I
you?
don't think that these protests that have maybe worked in the past will work again in the future. I think there'll have to be new protests. I think that's the way it will have to go.
Does the violence help by drawing attention, or does it make it easier for your protest to be dismissed? I mean, throwing fireworks at the police horses, for example. You know how much the British love animals. That's not guaranteed.
Well, I love animals too, but you have to take a different approach with this whole situation with animals and what they're trained to do. I mean, charge at crowds. That's the bottom line.
They weren't charging at crowds last night.
A little bit last night, a little bit. Not on this.
They were simply round Buckingham Palace, and some people threw firecrackers at them. Was that a wise thing to do?
Oh, well, I don't know about wise, but I mean, I've seen such police brutality. I've seen police knock girls around and all sorts of things, and I have no faith in the police force.
So why
whatsoever.
take it out on the horse?
Why are we going on about a horse when this is actually
well,
a bigger
just because fireworks were thrown and smoke grenades at them too.
Well, I wasn't actually there at that bit, so
the
I
question
can't really
I'm asking you is
comment on
whether this does your case. Does it draw attention and you therefore get coverage and people look at what you're protesting, or does it make it easier for people just to dismiss you? That was my question.
Well, I don't think the people that are actually on this march fighting for this particular cause really care about being dismissed, because, I mean, this is a bit of a circus, this is a spectacle, the media is a whole circus. We know what the media can do to us, that's the bottom line. So, so we just carry on. We carry on fighting for what we believe in.
Is this getting anywhere?
Doesn't look like it. I mean, you said...
Well, from your point of view.
No, but I'm interested...
What are you doing?
I think we should let him...
I was interested that you said...
listen.
I was interested you said the protests might not have been working recently. I mean, that's what you said. Would you say it's getting anywhere? Is it achieving what you wanted?
I don't think the one last night did, but I think some other protests have actually worked. Yeah, raised a bit of an awareness and actually potentially could lead to a bigger thing that could change things for a lot of people. Yeah, sure.
Well, I remember thinking this in about 2010, 2011, when those student protests were happening, particularly around tuition fees. And you felt, is this a moment? Is this when the Conservative Party in particular, and obviously the Lib Dems, are going to feel the effect of this public anger that's brewing on the streets? It didn't happen because most people don't feel it. And, completely fair enough for some people.
Who's most people?
Well, voters.
The people who vote. In May, we had an election. That's how we find out what people think.
Okay, yeah. So you're talking about people that believe in the establishment. Works well for you, sweetheart, okay? Doesn't work well for us.
Thank you for patronising me. Well, I'd like to ask a question.
All right,
you kept talking about how it was very boring last night.
Yeah, it was very
boring. We couldn't do anything. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but my guess is that you were saying at this point what you really would have liked was lots of violence, attacking police officers and damaging public property and private property. Is that what you would have preferred? Is that your anything?
How did women get the vote? Have you seen the Suffragettes film? It's a crap film, but I mean, violence does work sometimes. Unfortunately, okay?
The point is that women at the time
violent?
didn't have the vote, whereas you do have the vote. What we actually really need is for the huge numbers of young people, particularly young people and from poorer families, who don't vote. We need to get those.
What do you know about poor families? families. What do you know
Can I finish
about
the
Portland? No, I mean, because you don't know.
Well,
That's the
I'm just a
bottom line.
sweetheart, aren't I? Or a word you caused me before we came on air, something
Don't try
rather
and make me
ruder
look
than that we can't
misogynistic,
say on
you know.
air.
You can shame me if you want, sweetheart.
What we need
All
is to
right.
get young
Yeah,
people
whatever.
to vote, not young
Okay.
people to go around smashing up central London.
I have a feeling
Yeah.
this isn't going to go any further, so we'll leave
Well,
it there.
thank you, Andrew,
That's
for
we're
your time again.
establishment.
Thank you. Hold on, just let me read this bit and then you can depart. Thank you.